Everything is not fine.
Oh,
Shit.
okay.
Well, we
live?
are live.
Oh,
Yes,
fuck.
we are live, ladies and
Hello.
gentlemen. Kyle says everything is not fine, but we are live, so that's
Damn it.
good.
We're all alive.
We are. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Cosmographia live episode.
Live.
You mean live? Oh,
The 20th live episode.
We're back.
We are back. We were in the
Seems like an eternity.
yeah. We were in the Scablands. We're in Egypt. So it's been a long time.
Florida, Tennessee, Texas. Where else? I know there's been a few other places.
Back to Florida. You went
Arkansas.
to Florida twice.
Arkansas, yeah, Florida twice. Arkansas, Texas, Tennessee. But here we are. We're all in our home bases, safe and sound. Survived our travels.
That's right. And there
I
might
could be somewhere else.
be a mic issue with Randall that we'll have to fix live on the show.
It's Zoom's auto game.
It is.
Okay, so let's try something. Test 1, 2. Test. Is that better?
No,
Test
because
1, 2.
Zoom is changing the gain as you change the gain.
Yeah.
It's the same.
It's
Why
exactly-
would Zoom be doing
Because
that?
Zoom is an asshole.
Okay. Well,
So clearly we're not advertising for Zoom on this show.
It's all right. You sound fine right
Yeah,
now.
You sound fine.
okay.
If you don't
Okay.
talk
All
for a
right.
while and then you talk again, it'll be distorted.
It's gonna
But,
be loud, yeah.
whatever. I'll just
Oh,
I'll deal with the annoyance.
okay. All right.
Don't get irate and rage loudly.
Who, me or Randall?
I think
Randall.
Brad was directing that to me because he knows that I can from time to time go off
Okay.
on a rampage.
That's right. Well, so you can go on a rampage. You just need to start quiet.
Yeah.
And let
Well,
Zoom catch up.
That's right.
Right.
Zoom needs a few seconds to
Okay.
catch up to your
Quiet
volume level.
rampage.
And then you can get loud, right? Just start quietly.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, well, let's see. We've not done a podcast since you guys were back from Egypt. Is
That's
that
right.
correct?
That's
Yes.
right.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
So
Flying by.
I didn't see you guys like coming into the studio. Are you like walking like Egyptians now?
Yes. I
Could
have
we see a little
two-dimensional legs.
demonstration? A la Steve Martin.
Well, if you talk to Yusuf, he says that walking like an Egyptian is the position you have to take to crawl down the pyramid descending passages. That's walking like an Egyptian, which is a very cramped and strange position to walk in. So
Very awkward.
yeah, it's extremely awkward.
Ooh, so you guys went down into the bowels of the pyramid.
We did many of them. Yeah, we went.
Yeah.
We did Middle Pyramid, which is Khafre. We did Khufu,
Mm-hmm.
the Great Pyramid, and we did the Bent Pyramid. We did the
Mhm.
Red Pyramid, and we went beneath the Step Pyramid of Djoser as well.
Mm-hmm.
Did I miss any, Brad?
That's right. Well, there were 6 of them. Did you rattle off 5 there? Maybe you missed one.
Did I miss one?
Menkare, did you do that?
We
one?
went to Minkara and circumnavigated it, but we didn't go inside.
Yeah,
It's still
not
closed.
inside that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
You must have got them all.
yeah.
Yeah, we had extraordinary access to many places, and yeah, it was just way beyond anything I could have ever expected. These guys have been before once, right? Or was it twice already? That's your second or third time there. So they kind of knew what
Second.
they were getting into, but I just kind of kept open and soaked it all in, and it was managed so well. I was very impressed. The hotels were great. The transportation was excellent. Though it's crazy getting around 20 million people with no traffic lights and no stop signs. That was wild to try to integrate into my consciousness as somebody that always drives. But yeah, we had access to places that's not open to the public. We had private access into multiple places. We got into the Sphinx Temple, which is right in front of the Sphinx, not the Valley Temple, but the Sphinx Temple. You can walk around it and see down in it, but apparently the gates have been welded shut for 50 to 60 years, and our guide Yusef had never even been in there. So it wasn't anything crazy outstanding, and you can see from overhead anyway, but yeah, that was just one of many places that we were able to access. And so as a group, I feel like we had really, really special care taken of us, and couldn't have had a better time. Just amazing. And of course, always like the family that's growing is just an awesome group of 60
Mhm.
people.
Yeah.
And many familiar faces, people who've been to the Scablands with us and to Montana. So it was great.
And I believe you did Karnak and Luxor.
We did.
Right?
Mhm.
Dendera,
Yeah, I knew
Abu
Dendera.
Simbel.
Thank you, Kyle, for the photos.
Ah, you're welcome, sir.
Mm.
Yeah.
I spent
are-
most of the time we were there trying to capture those photos, actually.
It'll be worth it.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Well, were you duly impressed by what you saw, in spite of the fact that you may not have necessarily understood what was being depicted?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, the whole place is jaw-dropping, mind-blowing. It's just, it's enormous. It's incredible.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that was my second time there, so I didn't mind spending most of the time in the main hall. So that was fine. It was for a good cause. Randall,
Yeah, I'm still
apparently is
reviewing
going
my
to
pictures,
blow
and
our
I just
minds
got
with his
into those
analysis.
yesterday. Oh, sorry, Kyle.
No,
But
go ahead.
yeah, that was just phenomenal, reviewing those things and seeing what was on the ceiling there, and trying to absorb some of those stories. Like you're saying, we don't know exactly what it's saying, but just letting the imagination run. Just beautiful and intricate and colorful and amazing, and in a lot of ways grateful that it still exists.
Mhm. Mhm.
That was part of the problem I had the first week. It's like it hurt that so many places were so damaged,
Yes.
just so much destruction, and just in horrible condition, and just I guess so many stones hauled away to be built in other locations. But yeah, that was something took me a while to accept that they were just in such horrible condition, and that people would get in there and destroy that stuff.
Yeah, most of that effacement that you saw was deliberate. So I mean, it's basically 1700 years ago, 1800 years ago, when a lot of that took place. So they had cancel culture back then. And that's exactly what that is. It's that same mindset that's been plaguing the forward progress and momentum of the human species on this planet for thousands of years. And now we have seeing a resurgence of it in our own time. And as we well know, we've seen what happened lately, which we are going to talk about a little bit tonight. Not necessarily right off the bat, right out of the gate, but people probably know I'm referring to the Netflix series.
Oh yeah.
And what's gone down there with the mainstream reaction to it, which is a lesson. There are lessons, multiple lessons in there, I think, for all of us to learn who are really trying to get to the truth of our own history. Because I think what we see there is concerted effort to actually obscure the truth of our history. And if that's the case, then it raises the question of why. Because clearly, I think we can say that what's driving the reaction on a lot of these people is not science, because you can read through and we should look at a few examples. It's not science because there's no science-based arguments in any of the attacks on Graham or the Netflix series. What's driving it is politics. And then that raises the question of why has this been so politicized? What we're seeing is the wokeness, the cancel culture wokeness infecting the halls of academia. And we've already seen that with regards to even the harder sciences. We've seen it with respect to the whole climate change issue. We've seen it with respect to the pandemic issue. We've seen it with respect to a lot of other things. And we're going to see it with respect to this as well, because I think that it's talking to us loud and clear that there are factions that want to control the narrative, and they feel like if they lose their grasp on any one part of it, the whole rest of it's going to collapse.
Well, it's very telling too that the responses started even before the series was released.
Yeah.
So they were already taking a stance without even knowing what was going to be covered in the series there, Ancient Apocalypse.
Well, when you read some of the criticisms, they're actually bragging. Well, I watched 3 minutes of it, and that's all I needed to watch. They're bragging about it. So So it to me, it raises some serious questions, because I expected that there would be some criticism in response to it. But when I saw the extent of it, and I went ahead and read 7 or 8 different attacks. I read, interviews and things. And they're basically, like I said earlier, leading up to the show, I think they're all reading from the same script, or at least the same talking points. And of course, to say that, then you're going to be guilty. And so what they've tried to do is preempt being able to legitimately saying that by proclaiming that anyone who questions the dominant narrative of our history is a conspiracy theorist. How many times did you guys see that in some of the critiques, if you read them over and over again? Conspiracy theorists. It's only conspiracy theorists who are going to believe Graham Hancock.
Right.
So it raises questions. Why this vociferous attack?
Well, they've been making conspiracy theorists out of a lot of people for a long time.
Recently.
Yeah.
Well, it's like climate denier. They just throw a label on you, and then other people that are just fringe paying attention will say, oh, well, that's what box I can put them in, so I can ignore that too. That's a conspiracy theory. I don't have to listen to that.
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, I think that it would be the prudent thing to do to at least come to Graham's defense, because the man has put himself out there on the tip of the sword, and he's bearing the brunt of this. And I think it would be a good thing to do to deflect a little bit of that away from him and defend him against these, accusations of being a racist, of a white supremacist, etc. I mean, that to me is pretty damn sleazy, dirty, and below the belt. But what it does show, if you read through their comments, they don't have anything of substance. There's nothing there. There's no rebuttal. There's no refutation of anything. There's no counter arguments. No, it's just smear campaign through and through. Every critical fallacy in the book is in those responses to Graham. So it's actually a very instructive thing to go through some of that and look for. It's like looking for where's Waldo? Instead of Waldo, where's the
recording in progress?
That's right.
Where's the actual science that's in any of the responses? It ain't there. So, but hey, get me fired. You're getting me fired up now, Ross.
Good. I'm just letting you roll with it, man. Go.
Yeah.
It's annoying to me that they claim that he is stealing the heritage from people by suggesting that they were given knowledge and information, when in a lot of cases their own history, in their own myths and in their own stories, they're saying that. So it's the opposite. It's like these academics are disregarding their myths and their history as like a bunch of bullshit. That's stealing their history from them. When Graham is trying to say, like, hey, they're telling us in their own stories that this is what happened. So it's just,
so he's being
more true to their to their heritage.
And that's the thing. If you had any of these people, actually, it's just like, who one of those lead archaeologists, I think we agreed not to even mention his name, who actually responded to the challenge to debate Graham, came up with some lame excuse. He won't do it. And it's some lame excuse like, hey, I'm a professional and I would be lowering myself if I, we're actually going to debate an idea about prehistory. So, but what is he really doing? No, really, all he's doing is showing he doesn't have anything. He will come out looking like a fool. And he would, because he doesn't have anything. I read that entire interview that he did, and there was nothing there. Nothing. I mean, I could actually read quotes. I have some of it right here. But if he had something, it would have been there. It wasn't there, so.
That's right.
And the way, the backhanded way they go about it, it's instructive. it's instructive because you can see the tactics that they employ. But I personally think it's going to backfire on them. They're feeling a sense of fear and desperation because it became the most popular Netflix in the docuseries in the world for a few days, right? So
if they were confident in their position, though, right? Wouldn't you think somebody would just take that role, or they'd have a little discussion amongst themselves? Okay, well, let's bury this guy. We've got all the evidence. Let's take this challenge on and put him away. But they won't do it. They won't show up because
right.
They don't have that.
So like
it's more likely they're going to get slammed.
Here is the title of an interview that appeared in The Guardian. You guys are familiar with The Guardian?
Yeah.
Uber, left wing, right? Here's the title: The Ancient Absurdities of Ancient Apocalypse, a Netflix show for, and then it has in the scare quotes, free thinkers, promotes a whole lot of bunk. It's hugely popular. Now you think, okay, let's see what specifically is the bunk. You go through the interview, and like I said, there is nothing there. And I find it interesting that not only this one here, but that seems to be a regular occurrence throughout these attacks, to use the term free thinkers in quotes. Scare quotes, that's where you're putting the quotes in because what you're saying is that the reality of the use of this word or this phrase is the exact opposite of how it's being used. So that's what they do. They put it in those quotes. There's a term for that. It's scare quotes. And the idea is that they're saying, well, people who listen to them might think they're free thinkers, but they're really not free thinkers. Of course, I don't know then what constitutes a free thinker in the minds of these people. And then, so here's one of the questions. What can you say about the difference between the way academic archaeology approaches evidence and how Graham Hancock does? Okay, here's the reply. Graham Hancock is not and does not want to be seen as a scientist or a historian. Okay, he is coming from a metaphysical place. He's inspired by Western esoterica. Okay, now I don't know if this distinguished and learned gentleman who's making this comment has any idea of what Western esoterica actually is, and the fact that it really is, in fact, a rich resource of bona fide information. Because the simple fact of our own history is very much of the facts and details of our history had to necessarily be esoterica, because there were times you could be burned at the stake, tortured to death, banished, or whatever for the crime, being guilty of the crime of heresy.
Kind of like today.
Heresy is thinking and saying things that are not approved by the authorities. Yes, Kyle. You had a thought.
Oh, I said it's kind of like today a little bit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So right there, you can see he's dismissing the idea of esoterica, right? Well, Graham is, as he says, he's inspired by Western esoterica. For him, the significance of a lot of this information is sort of intuitive and is confirmed to him through his personal revelatory experiences. Fair enough. But I would say that all science starts with intuition. Am I right?
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. Then he goes on to say, if it seems like in watching the show, his perspective has been influenced by drugs, it's because it has. Well, there we go. No honest appraisal of the questions Graham raises need ensue. After all, he's influenced by drugs.
Well, yeah, I think that's the core of the resistance right there.
Yeah.
Is it?
So,
you think that's what it is? Really?
I don't think that's what it is.
I mean,
it could be. I think it's being thrown out there just as another effort to discredit him personally, and by discrediting him personally, you discredit the questions he's raising.
Yeah.
Because that's really all he's doing is raising questions. He's proposing ideas, but you'll know if you listen to his actual his narrative that he speaks, he'll use the word perhaps this happened. Perhaps there was this. We have to look at the big picture and realize that there are many missing pieces to the puzzle within the mainstream narrative. So then here's another question asked by the same discernibly biased interviewer. In reading up on him, I saw that Hancock was once a bit more explicit about the idea that these figures, who supposedly spread across the world to disseminate their ideas as their own civilization was dying, were white. In this series, that's not part of things. Has he adjusted the way he presents this? So here's the response from the distinguished professor. If you research Graham Hancock and look at his books over time, as I have, apparently he never looked at the references or bibliography in the back of the book. I'm guessing that he says he looked at the books over time. I'm guessing that maybe he went to a bookstore and saw a book on the shelf by Graham Hancock and looked at it momentarily. Okay. And look at his books over time, as I have. One of the things that you discover about him is that he self-edits. He doesn't use the word Atlantis now, except very sparingly, because, of course, all you have to do in the eyes of the mainstream academics is even mention the word Atlantis in any kind of context other than rote dismissal, and you're immediately a pseudoscientist, a fringe theorist, all the names that go along with it. Okay, he doesn't use the word Atlantis now, except very sparingly. He has also edited himself since 1995, when in Fingerprints of the Gods, he came out and said that it was an ancient white civilization. He didn't actually say that. What he did do, though, was report that there were a lot of indigenous peoples whose own stories would suggest that they had interaction with white people at some point, Caucasian people. But now, never mind the fact that their own traditions suggest that. If you even bring that up, look what's happened to Graham, the labels that have been flung at him. So he no longer says and then in quotes, the white part in the series. But if you pay careful attention, he does talk about, in quotes, heavily bearded Quetzalcoatl, who arrives, according to myth, to give the gift of knowledge. But he doesn't mention the other part of the trope, which all of us know about, which is that this visitor supposedly had white skin. So, I had a comment about that. Graham is guilty of self-editing. That's being a charge placed against him. As if every single author, researcher, scientist, and scholar doesn't do exactly the same thing as time passes and they learn more and gain greater insight into the subject matter of their research. Am I right? That's right. But if Graham does it, now this is something that can be used against him. Assuming that he has learned something in his research since 1995 and amended his perspective and his viewpoints. But if he does that and expresses it, well, now that's something that can be used to undermine his credibility. So then, notice how he says also the fact that, quotes, all of us know about visitors to Central and South America having white skin and beards. It's a deceitful admission by this guy, right? Because his sole purpose is to undermine Graham's reputation by tarring him as a racist, while not overtly acknowledging the traditions of the indigenous peoples themselves. You notice how he sidestepped that. He didn't say anywhere that this was the people, like you just said before we went live, Russ, it was the indigenous people's own traditions that suggested this.
Right. Yeah. So the question we've always, Kyle and I have asked many times on our show is when we're talking about this kind of stuff, is because we've been accused of the same thing, obviously not in anywhere the same level as Graham is being attacked for Ancient Apocalypse, but we've been accused before by people of some kind of racism because we're stealing heritage from people by suggesting there may be an injection of technology or, a different culture or maybe a much older one. Never discussing skin color at all. But the point is
right.
like, it seems like to dismiss the local legends and myths, the mythology and the legends of the people there as being just, it's not true,
Right.
is more racist than suggesting, well, their stories say that people came over and gave them tech. It doesn't matter what color their skin is. That really isn't the discussion.
No.
But they want to focus on that. So I don't know. It's the whole thing to me is just.
Well, then he goes on.
Okay.
Check this out. Okay. So, so he continues with his response to the interviewer by describing Graham's methodology. And here's the quote again. It's similar to the way that Donald Trump operates.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was a great show. It was one of the best Netflix shows ever to come out. I've seen a lot of Netflix shows.
Hey.
This was one of the best in all of ancient history.
But so all you got to do if you want to discredit someone is just somehow connect them or associate them with Donald Trump. It's similar to the way Donald Trump operates. He will get to the edge of something, but he won't say it because he knows his followers already know it. He can say, I didn't say that, and he didn't say that, but everyone knew what he said because it was already known. There's the answer. So basically, all of Graham's followers already know that Graham is implying racism, but he doesn't actually have to say it because all of us followers, we already know it. See? Now, how interesting that it's these same people that are accusing fans of Graham's work or people who are at least even open-minded about his work of being the conspiracy theorists. So, oh my God. Anyhow, the interviewer, I've skipped a lot of it, but so the interviewer sums up her obliviousness with this final comment and question. What's interesting to me about this series getting super popular on Netflix is that I'm not sure what percentage of the people who are watching it know that the theory of Atlantis used to be, or sometimes still is, that kind of a theory. I think I can imagine the answer to this question. That kind of a theory, meaning, of course, that it's a racist theory. No mention of Plato, of course, or his dialogues, because I'm sure that this woman has never read Plato's dialogues at all. She certainly hasn't seen my 8-hour dissertation and discussion on Atlantis. So then I like that phraseology, that kind of a theory. The theory of Atlantis. So somebody tell me, what is the theory of Atlantis? Well,
right.
I don't even know.
What is that? What is the theory of Atlantis?
Yeah, well, so this, she continues with this hackneyed line of questioning. This is what she says. What are the stakes of this show being popular on Netflix? I mean, the stakes of this show being popular on Netflix for what our sense of what science is. It's just more disinformation. A term that we've heard a whole lot of in the last couple of years, haven't we? And it's more distrust of expertise. We can't have the experts distrusted because they are omniscient about all things related to the human story on planet Earth. But then she asked the distinguished professor, what would you say are the stakes for archaeology? And anyways, this is what he says. The biggest stakes right now in the United States or what happens to academic archaeology if university administrators and students and alumni begin demanding that departments of anthropology and archaeology at the university support this line of thinking. So people cannot be allowed to indulge in this line of thinking. Meaning what? Meaning anybody who questions that looks into the subject of our own story on this planet and realizes that there's a whole lot of missing pieces.
Yeah.
That line of thinking cannot be allowed in our institutions of higher learning.
Right, or maybe they mean white supremacist thinking. I don't know. But yeah, it's either it's weird that they would say something like that, like we can't allow questions, but I think they're trying to refer to the theory of Atlantis problem.
Well, yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Again, no rational discussion of Atlantis is actually allowed.
Right.
All you have to do is mention that word outside the framework of academic dismissal, and you're immediately a crank and a crackpot.
Yep.
And so the one that really got me, though, the one that I just read from you, I think that was in Slate. This is the one that was from Guardian by, it's entitled Ancient Apocalypse is the most dangerous show on Netflix.
Right. I did see that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the subheading: a show with a truly preposterous theory is one of the streaming giant's biggest hits, and it seems to exist solely for conspiracy theorists. And here he asks the question, why has this been allowed? Why has this been allowed? So this is what's passing for journalism here. Okay. It exists solely for conspiracy theorists. So there's that. My response was, think about what you just heard. Why has this been allowed? Is this what journalism has degenerated into? Apparently, to this guy, the author of this article, the problem here is that no self-appointed, omnisciently endowed authority intervened to disallow the airing of this show. Now, would I be exaggerating if I called these people totalitarians in their thinking?
Right on.
Remember what Mao, Stalin, and all the rest of these dictators, one of the first things they do, they seize control of the narrative. And no one is allowed to step outside the bounds that have been permitted, the bounds of permissible lines of thinking. This is what he goes on to say in his ignominious smear campaign. This presents something of a mystery, because the show closely resembles the sort of half-baked filler documentary that one of the lesser Discovery channels would slap up at 3 a.m. between shows about plane crashes and fascist architecture. Ancient Apocalypse obviously has an audience, but who on earth is it? Fortunately, he goes on to say, you don't have to watch for long to find out. In quick succession, during the pre-show sizzle reel, we are treated to a clip of the show's host, Graham Hancock, being interviewed by, are you ready for this? Joe Rogan.
Yep, that's it.
There we go. That's it.
Now we know
right
who his audience is.
All you need to do is watch that pre-show sizzle reel, and when you see Joe Rogan, quick, turn it off. What more proof do you need that Ancient Apocalypse is preposterous, to use the word in the title? So this journalistic imposter then goes on to say this, in quote, finally, we have an answer. Ancient Apocalypse must be a TV program made exclusively for people who like to shout at you on Twitter. All right, all of you folks out there that are listening to us right now that watch this show, in case you were having any questions about your own self-identity, well, it's been answered for you. You are nothing more than a person that likes to shout at people on Twitter.
So you should definitely go shout at them.
They're shouting at us in the comments right now.
Are they? Do they? Well, so, and then here we go. So a wave of his arm. That's all it takes. A wave of his arm. This pathetic excuse of a journalist dismisses a lifetime of work and research by someone whose credibility, I would say, stands immeasurably above his own. So he continues with his tedious analysis. Quotes, these people, referring to everybody who, tuned in and watched Netflix, these people are Hancock's bread and butter. The, quotes, free thinkers, there we go again, free thinkers in scare quotes, who, through some bizarre quirk of nature, are often more perennially outraged than anyone else on earth. So, know this about yourselves. You're also perennially more outraged than anyone else on earth. And this is why you watched the Netflix series.
They seem pretty mad about this. The
Who
author. They seem fairly upset.
Yeah. And then
well, I don't like that there's scare quotes on anything relating to free.
I know.
Freedom, free thinking, free acting,
right.
Free talking, and what the heck is he coming from to scare people like you're not supposed to be free?
Good question.
I don't like that.
So here's
I want to yell on Twitter, and I haven't been on Twitter in 2 years, so crank my account up.
Yeah, crank it up and go shout at him.
Let's all get together and shout.
That's right.
Okay, we'll get this guy. We'll all. What could we do? We'll get him on Zoom or something. We'll get everybody who watch Netflix. We get him on Twitter. Right?
Yeah. Go to their Twitter account and just shout it, all caps, and everything you say.
Oh my God! So here's his summary. Okay, Hancock, how anybody could believe this is impossible to understand. Hancock believes that an advanced Ice Age civilization, and I'm going to pause there for one reason, is because, first of all, they use the term advanced all the time, but never defined or clarified by the critics what you actually mean by advanced. They'll use it. Now, my point is that the word advanced, what you mean by that, it's central to the entire question of the existence or not of any pre-Holocene organized culture that could be construed as civilized. Am I right? So what do we mean by advanced? Like we always joke with with
Mike,
normal guy.
Yeah.
Are they having, laser guns and crystal spaceships, or are they just, capable of navigating the world and have a sophisticated understanding of engineering and astronomy? We have to define. The first thing you do in any kind of scientific discussion is you define your terms. They never define what they mean by advanced. Okay, so let's go back. Hancock believes that an advanced Ice Age civilization responsible for teaching humanity concepts such as maths, plural, architecture, and agriculture was wiped out in a giant flood brought about by multiple comet strikes about 12,000 years ago. There are signs everywhere you look, he says. To prove this, he spends an entire television series looking everywhere. So apparently, I'm guessing this particular journalist either doesn't believe in or has absolutely no knowledge about any of the main issues in question.
And then like they may also believe that everything on TV or that is streamed is absolutely true.
Mm-hmm. So I would say he's plainly blind to the fact that the evidence for catastrophe is everywhere. I mean, as we've been trying to demonstrate on this podcast, I mean, I'd say we've made a pretty good start, but there's a whole lot more places we haven't talked about and documented on this podcast than the places we have talked about and looked at.
He's also definitely British, right? That's why he said maths.
Okay.
That's how. I think that's how they say it. It's not just one. It's not just one math, Randall. It's all of them. Maths.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Guardian's UK, right? So there you go.
For sure.
Yeah. So I would comment that this guy is oblivious to the fact that the evidence for multiple comet strikes at the Pleistocene-Holocene boundary with severe global environmental consequences is overwhelmingly supported by an enormous body of research and multidisciplinary evidence amassed by dozens of highly credentialed, accomplished scientists. Now, it seems to me that the idea of a comet strike, of giant floods, I mean, isn't that right at the core of this whole discussion? I mean, that's the idea, is that there were catastrophic events that may have obscured the archaeological record in ways we haven't realized yet. Yes. But what they do is they act like this is not even an issue. I mean, if you go through all of the various attacks on the series, on Graham, all they do is they mention, like there was supposedly a giant flood. There was supposedly, comet impacts. But I would like to read a quote here from some of the leading paleohydrologists. And we've had this quote in our show before. As I say, that he's oblivious to the fact that gigantic floods have indeed swept over the surface of the earth, large swaths of the earth's surface during precisely the same geological epoch. And to try to put some context in this, those who have been regular listeners to this podcast are going to know exactly what we're talking about. People who've been on the tours with us and who've engaged in this know exactly that the reality, the geological reality is that, yes, there have been what you could describe as biblical scale floods engulfing large regions of the Earth's surface. So I like this quote from Victor, and I know Brad likes it too, Victor Baker, Guru Kamutsu, and Sharon Clute, who wrote in 1995 in a seminal paper, and I quote, "Recently identified Pleistocene flood features indicate that planetary scale movement of water has been a major agent in shaping the landscape of our planet." So let that sink in. Planetary scale movement of water. What does that mean? And what does that mean for whatever humans were doing on the Earth when that happened? And that it happened in the same geological period as overwhelming evidence for the occurrence of multiple comet strikes. So even though that is a cornerstone of the whole question, we're going to just ignore it. We're just going to pretend it's, it's supposedly all this happened, but we don't need to actually address it. We don't need to consider it in our thinking or in our dismissal of these questions of the standard conventional narrative. So then,
well, can I break in here?
Absolutely.
So you see some of this, a similar kind, but in a slightly different vein of resistance to the Comet Research Group stuff.
Yes.
And I feel like it's all tied together. Like there's there's a more and more of a desperation.
Exactly.
Because if that one thing about the change from the Pleistocene to the Holocene becomes part of accepted standard science, then there's a whole lot of stuff that falls apart and has to completely be rethought.
You got that right.
Right. And so all of this is part of, it's all in the same piece. Like I think that they see this, and this is why there's so many attacks, and it keeps getting more and more, just slanderous, I guess is what it is.
Yeah. Slandered. Yep. So then, go ahead, Brad.
Well, I just mentioned to you the other day the article that I had read where they were assessing, well, we don't even need to address this. All these theories have already been discredited. Right.
Yeah.
But they've been discredited before there was evidence for the Younger Dryas impact.
Right.
And before there was actual factual science behind there being this huge catastrophe.
Yeah.
So like you're saying, they're going to have to go back and redo their work and everybody else's work because they didn't take into account this new evidence.
Right. And they're just ignoring it. They're ignoring 20 years of research.
Yep.
However, the author of this does go on to say, and I think the term that would apply to him is overweening conceit. This is the response to any media coverage of these phenomenal events. Here's the quote. About an intelligent life form being exploded off the planet in a hail of comet fire is preposterously boring. And all I can say about this is what an arrogant, uninformed, supercilious twit this pretend journalist is. And the only thing that can be described as preposterous is this journalist himself. So think about this. The most decisive and powerfully significant natural events in the history of the human species on planet Earth, events that have profoundly affected and altered the trajectories of both natural and human history, involving the most extreme catastrophic environmental and climatic events in hundreds of thousands or literally in millions of years. Events that left a deep imprint on the collective psyche of humanity in the form of universal mythic traditions and systems of belief. Events that have been prodigiously documented across the full spectrum of scientific investigation. All of this journalist finds preposterously boring. I mean, can you make this stuff up? Anyways.
I'm still waiting for the explanation of the Atlantis theory. I think we should do that.
Yeah, the Atlantis
Can you tell
theory.
me exactly what is the Atlantis theory?
Yeah, I know. What yeah.
Well,
so my comment is this. Normally, in a legitimate scientific debate, one does not insult or call one's opponent's names. Rather, one sticks to an objective analysis of the evidence and the facts of the matter. But this is not a scientific debate or discussion. The response to legitimate questions about the prevailing historical narrative is entirely motivated, I would say, by political agendas. And it needs to be recognized as such. And those leading the attack on the Netflix series and on Graham need to be exposed as the imposters that they are, because they are imposters. If the label pseudoscientist is attached to anyone, it should be to these Stalinist fraudsters who are writing this kind of crap and attacking this series without giving it a fair hearing or a fair objective analysis. One does not have to believe that Graham is right about everything or that every point made in this series is right, because it's probably not. That's how science works.
Right. I mean, you know, you're right. It isn't an actual review of the series at all. It's just a pure attack that sounds like, I mean, it seems obvious that there's an agenda behind it.
Yeah. Yep. But there's more. There is more.
I don't know if I can take any more.
Yeah. There are some favorable reviews of it. There are.
Sure.
I found a few.
Yeah, there
but
are.
But you know what?
Absolutely.
I think they're being shadow banned.
Could be.
Yeah.
Well, that's an outrageous claim. You're making with no
let's be
evidence.
clear. It's on Netflix exclusively at this point. It's 8-part series, pretty much 30 minutes each. So you can sit down if you got Netflix. It's pretty cheap monthly. I was able to see it watching it with somebody else, but yeah, you can binge it in 4 hours. And I had no problem sitting there and being totally interested and fascinated by it. And of course, Randall's in episode 8. So that's the finale climax, as is Alan West and Joe Rogan too. So get in there and watch Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix and keep those high ratings numbers going, because it's interesting and worthy of your watch and consideration, and figure out why these people are fighting so hard against it.
Yes.
Good point.
We got lots of donations as well.
Yep.
Comments and questions from the people out there.
Well, let's get to those in a second.
Okay.
Brad brought up a good point, though. And I think in one of them, this is a British archaeologist who's been in the forefront of the attacks, another one. So we did an archaeologist, and you guys suggested we don't mention names because it's only going to give them traffic, even though maybe would be the kind of traffic they wouldn't like. But this is from this British archaeologist. He says, why are professional archaeologists like so-and-so, or even the Society for American Archaeology, even engaging in this one-sided debate? Because they're worried. Polls conducted by Chapman University in the U.S. show an increase in paranormal beliefs, ranging from visiting aliens to haunted houses. Now, this in a review of the Netflix series. Now, to my knowledge, I don't think Graham talked about paranormal beliefs or haunted houses, did he? I don't think so. But then the polls also show an increase in beliefs that ancient civilizations such as Atlantis existed. Oh my God! Oh God, we're doomed. People who might actually think, and hopefully people who watch my 8-hour presentation may not necessarily, because I certainly didn't prove that Atlantis existed. I simply made the case that if we look specifically and literally at Plato and what he described, it could have existed, that there was nothing outrageous about it. And the geology, the geography, the astronomy, etc., supported a scenario in which an island culture could have existed during the Ice Age.
And critically, the timing.
But so those polls also show an increase in beliefs that ancient civilizations such as Atlantis existed. These beliefs, experts say, the experts. I don't know who these experts are. They don't give any names, but they're obviously out there. Those experts, they say that it can feed into a wider growing skepticism, if not outright rejection, of established scientific wisdom. This is why our British archaeologist is worried and speaking out against ancient apocalypse. And here's a quote from him. Once you start thinking, and I think this summarizes the whole situation that Brad was just pointing to and implying. Here's the quote. Once you start thinking that archaeologists are wrong, then you might think that doctors are wrong. Then you might think that politicians are lying. And so you can't trust anything. End of quote. Of course, I mean, we all know that politicians
shouldn't we start with that assumption?
Oh my God. Yeah, here's the title of another attack. With Netflix's Ancient Apocalypse, Graham Hancock has declared war on archaeologists. Yeah, he declared war.
Well, good thing they're already down in trenches, right?
Yeah.
They're ready.
Yeah, apparently so. They're down there in the trenches. Yeah. But, you know, the thing is, okay, so in the background of this guy, it mentioned, for example, some of the sites he'd worked on. Okay, now archaeologists will usually have a particular site or particular period of history that they focus on. And they might become very knowledgeable about specifics of that. Like, for example, right here in Georgia, you know, and in the Southeast, it's a prominent focus of archaeology is Civil War archaeology, right? You'll have archaeologists, they'll go in and they'll be excavating, you know, Civil War battle sites and so on. And they can put together an amazingly detailed picture of events that went on. That occurred, right? They can look at the type of artifacts. They can look at what the food they were eating. They can look at, you know, the type of weapons that they were using. They can radiocarbon date bone. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff they can do. But how does that necessarily qualify that archaeologist to have an opinion on Middle Paleolithic archaeology and what might have been going on during the Ice Age? Let's say 15 or 20,000 years ago. Well, it doesn't. You basically just have to take what the academic mainstream view is, and you incorporate that into your thinking, and you accept it as being gospel.
Right. It doesn't make them an authority.
No.
Right. But they can have opinions just like anybody. But
they can have opinions,
yeah,
of course.
But they're not expert in that particular topic because they have
right.
a very narrow focus, just like a lot of academics.
Now, what I see over and over and over again in these attacks is a reference to unnamed experts or experts who are quoted, like the couple of so-called experts that I just read, right? Okay, well, I don't think that guy that I just read really has any knowledge. He can claim he does, but what has he actually done? And if you go back, let's say, to a Clovis site, let's think of the example of Al Goodyear. I think that's a perfect example here of the problem. Bradley and I, you were there, right, Brad? Yeah, you were there.
Topper?
At Topper site. We visited the Topper site with Graham, with George Howard was there, a few other people. Chris Moore, I think, was he there at that one? Yeah, Chris Moore was there. So Al Goodyear is the geologist that had been excavating this Topper site, I think, for a couple of decades anyway. So right there, standing on the site with him, he describes to us how, you know, he was kind of indoctrinated into the Clovis first idea. And he had excavated down and found the Clovis cultural layer and, you know, their spear points and their debitage and all the stuff there at that particular layer. And that layer was the Younger Dryas, the lower Younger Dryas boundary. Now, of course, Al Goodyear is now a member of the Comet research team because his own researches led him to believe that there was the possibility of catastrophic events around that cultural horizon. But as we stood there and he told his story, you know, he said that when people would ask him, well, what's below the Clovis layer? And he basically said, well, presumably nothing, because we all know Clovis first, right? Well, he had enough people asking him repeatedly. He said, finally, and this is what open-minded scientists should do. He said, well, I decided to dig down a little deeper. And what happened when he dug down, I think it was about 6 feet down below the Clovis layer. What happened? He found another cultural layer. Now, right there, you could say, oh, well, I'm an expert on the Clovis and there's nothing before the Clovis. Well, have you ever looked? Well, no. So you've got this assumption that it's all known. It isn't. One of the things this archaeologist that I was just quoting here, you know, he talks about sea levels, underwater evidence. So his research specializes in the Bronze Age. And so he says that in addressing several of Hancock's claims, first that key evidence might have disappeared underwater. That was one of the things that Graham said, which is eminently plausible, right? Well, this is what this guy says, this archaeologist. He says that could easily be debunked because there's a lot of underwater archaeology. We have good understanding of what's going on underwater. Oh, we do? In my Atlantis series, one of the things I did was I brought forward the marine geologists, oceanographers who are actually studying the bottom of the ocean. And if you recall, one of the very interesting quotes that I presented was by a marine geologist studying the mid-Atlantic ridge. And he said this, and I recently read the quote just to refresh my mind. He said, no more than 0.01% of the mid-Atlantic ridge has been mapped. 0.01%. Yet this guy says that Graham could be easily debunked because, quote, there's a lot of underwater archaeology. We have a good understanding of what's going on underwater. No, if you actually look, what you find out is that one of the great frontiers in front of us is underwater archaeology, and we've barely begun to look at it. We're just now beginning to find out the knowledge and information that the oceans are going to yield up to us now that we've got the technology and ever improving technologies in place to begin to see that world under there. So again, it's just this shallow, superficial reaction to this. They don't, it's really like everything they say, they're discrediting themselves. I mean, look at how much I've read so far. I could have read 5 times this much, and there would still be no more substance to any of what they're saying than anything you've just heard.
Yeah, and then multiple times that we've got better mapping of the moon and Mars than we do at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
Well, we have a bunch of I don't want to interrupt, but we do have a bunch of donations and questions, and we only have half an hour left.
God, I've been having so much fun though.
Yeah, I can tell you're loving this. We got
to get angry at some other people too, though.
Let's get to some questions. I think maybe I've made my point here.
It's the most dangerous show on Netflix for the standard model of archaeology.
It is. And some of the reasons why they're being so aggressive in their attacks against it. And I will just conclude by reiterating what I just said. I think it's going to backfire on them because I think people who are actually thinking objectively, who are legitimate free thinkers, and are not, emotionally wedded to the dominant narrative, are going to see very easily that these attacks have no substance to them. If you want, in fact, like I said, if you want a lesson in every critical fallacy there is in the books, read these attacks on the Netflix series. All right, so questions. We got some good questions, you think?
We do. Okay, the first one is from Andrew, $20, and he's
thank you, Andrew,
asking about decoding the Avebury Hinge complex. It is on the 3-7 latitude line on directly south in Spain. Is a hinge on the 4-7 line. The distance from the Avebury Hinge to the Silbury Hinge is 1/28,000th of the circumference of the Earth.
Interesting. Well, Andrew, I think that question would be beyond what we could dive into tonight. It's a very interesting question, and it opens up the subject that I've referred to as sacred geography. An immensely interesting subject which deals with the issue and the question of how people chose the sites for the ancient sacred places, how they chose the position for the ancient sacred sites. We know, one, that they utilized geometry over and over again. All the examples from all over the world, geometry was important. Secondly, we know that they also consciously oriented the sacred sites, whether it's a hinge, a circle, a pyramid, a temple, whatever the case may be. Always over and over again, we find an orientation and a link between the earth and the sky. So there's that consistency. Then we get to what you're raising, Andrew, which is the question of sacred geography. And this is how they chose the sites. And we've discussed that somewhat on our podcast. And that's a subject that we really do need to come back to and dive into, because I think that's a critical component of how the thinking of these ancient architects and engineers, their methodology, that these things were worked out astronomically, geologically, geographically. Beyond that, Andrew, I couldn't really say too much, but yeah, it sounds interesting, for sure. And I think that the Avebury henge and moat and embankment and so on is part of a much larger complex. And interestingly, I will say that one of the things that Graham points out is this extraordinary consistency across history and across geography that is completely ignored and dismissed by mainstream archaeology. And I just don't think you can do that. I don't think that's fundamentally legit to do that, because you could say if there's an alignment or an archaeoastronomical orientation or a specific use of geometry in several cases, yes, one could say it's coincidental, but it's over and over and over again, every continent, with the possible exception of Antarctica, and who knows what's buried under the ice there. But every continent displays the same implementation of the same kind of a system. That alone raises questions that mainstream archaeology has no answer for. All right, let's go on to the next question.
Okay. Alex Brown, $108. Thank you.
I love the number, Alex.
Yes.
In fact, just when my 5 days in Florida that I was down there, and we do need to get to that a little bit before we
can we do it at the very end? I'll try to go through as many of these we can. Yeah.
I was going to say, for those 5 days that I just returned from Florida, meeting with the chief scientist of the Strike Foundation, I was in room 108.
108. All right. Okay, so Alex says, can you tell us a little about the universal story of the sacrifice of the divine king, like some of the symbolism behind all of the universal stories and what they ultimately represent? Thanks, and happy holidays.
Alex, you've hit upon a really juicy subject matter there. And I have talked about that, but let me say this. I've gone into it a number of times without really peeling back and unpacking the full depth of the thing. Looks like I'm going to be putting together a presentation in late April, during the spring, during the Easter season, that's going to deal directly with that idea of the sacrifice of the divine king. And that's going to be part of a presentation about the mysteries and legend of the Holy Grail, which has a direct connection with the crucifixion, which is the Christian version of the sacrifice of the divine king. So I think I'll save any discussion of that for this upcoming conference that we're going to be doing in April. And I will be putting together some really juicy information about the Grail and its connection with a lot of other traditions from around the world. So I'll beg your patience on that, Alex. And thanks for the 108, dude.
All right. Travis from Wisconsin, $50. He wants to know your thoughts on the London Hammer, also known as the London artifact that was found in London, Texas in 1936. So this is an out-of-place artifact.
Okay, let me write that down, because, Travis, you're asking me about something I'm not familiar with. London, Texas. But hey, man, thanks to your question, I'm going to look this up.
Yeah, it's
what do we say? Artifact?
Interesting artifact it's seemingly found in a geological context that makes it very ancient, but it's got an iron head on it and partially fossilized wood handle, right? So, interesting artifact. If it's legit,
are you guys familiar with that?
I mean, yeah, we've talked about it, but we're not experts in any of this stuff. I'd love to go see it if possible. But yeah, it is.
Where is it?
It's a fairly well-known out-of-place artifact.
Has it been excavated? Is it in a museum, or is it still in situ? Is it still
No, it's
in
not.
the ground?
It's not still in the ground. No.
Still in the ground, and
Not-
one can see
No,
it.
it is not still in the ground.
Right.
Oh,
Not still
where
in the
is
ground.
it?
I do think they have it. I can't remember.
No
It's
idea.
been so long since we looked at this. Yeah, now you're putting me
Okay.
on the spot. Yeah, but we did look at it. It's an interesting idea.
Okay,
object.
so I've got London, Texas.
Yeah.
Artifact. Does it go by a specific name?
The London Hammer.
Oh, the London Hammer. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay, the London Hammer.
Yeah.
Any idea how much the hammer weighed?
I don't remember.
It's kind of like, I'm just guessing, but it's more like a 2 or 3 pound sledge. It kind of looks like a sledgehammer
Yeah.
a little
So
bit.
probably would have been wielded by like a sledge with
Like,
two arms.
just one
rather
hand.
than
Well,
like a
one
s-
hand,
No,
like-
like,
yeah.
a 2 or 3 pound sledge is just a one hand
Oh, okay.
sledge. That's what it looks like, but of course I haven't seen it in person. I don't know how big it is, but it looks like that.
Yeah.
to
So,
me.
but they're okay. So they're not. Wouldn't have been using it for like say trim carpentry then.
No,
they,
it looks.
They weren't driving 6-penny nails.
No, it looks more like something you might use with a chisel.
Sorry, I just saw
okay.
this funny comment about this hammer.
Yeah, we're very distracted by the chat. You guys are hilarious.
Okay. So go, let's have a few more.
Okay. This is a very short. Gunnison asks, gives $5 and says, "Phaeton equal Satan?" ?
I would say that's an interesting correlation because Phaeton and Satan, both in their stories, did what? They both fell from heaven, didn't they? Right?
Yes, right.
So yeah, we can certainly explore that. And didn't we get into a little discussion of that? I mean, I know we've discussed Phaeton.
Yeah.
Did we discuss Satan?
We have, along with the serpent and the dragon.
Yeah.
There we go. I knew we had.
Yeah, about 10 episodes ago.
About 10 episodes. So is this Travis? No, who is this? This was
Gunnison.
Denison. Okay.
Gunnison. Like
Gunnison.
Yeah, Gunnison.
Like the Black Canyon.
Black Canyon.
All right. So the canyon was named after Gunnison?
Very possible.
Hey, I better come up with a good answer then. There is an episode where we talked about that. And that may be something I get into the Grail. We'll see. Because, there are lots of stories of falling gods falling from heaven. I've talked about Zantamach, the fallen god in Mayan traditions. There are other traditions as well. So it's kind of a universal thing, this idea of gods falling from heaven. And that was Satan. He was... And somewhere, and I don't remember if we did this in the episode or not, but I did an etymological analysis of the very word and the name of Satan, and it yields up some pretty interesting insights as to what is actually behind the concept of Satan. And
Now, was that the same episode you were talking about the Garden of Eden and the deception by the serpent there?
It may have been.
I think that was the same episode there. So
maybe it was.
Yeah, obviously it's not going to help with this live crew, but I'll put it in the notes, links for the
Okay.
people that see this later. Yeah, that'll
All
be
right.
easy to track down.
Somebody in the
Well,
chat said the London Hammer is in where was it? I just
Like a
saw it.
400 million year old rock layer, geological
yes,
layer. That's
but
what they said.
somebody said where it was.
Okay, if the rock is
The
actually
creation-
400
The Creation
million years
Evidence
old,
Museum. That's where it is.
Ancient Evidence Museum. Okay,
Creation.
Creation.
Yes.
Okay, because then what they're arguing then is that it's not really 400 million year old rocks.
Right. That's right.
That these rocks are actually only 5,000 or 6,000 years old.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to look into it.
Okay.
I got to say though, if you're telling me that there's a hammer that's buried in a 400 million year old rock, my first response would be skepticism.
Sure. That's
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Right. All right. Let's
Okay.
proceed. More. I want more.
Rich Gerber gives Gerber gives $5. Thank you, Rich. No comment. Bruce Silva, $20, says beer money.
Yeah,
I'll see you guys in
Bruce
Nashville.
Silva.
Bruce.
The name sounds familiar.
Yeah, have you heard of that guy?
Batman. Bruce Wayne, maybe.
Have you heard of that? Does that name sound familiar to you, Russ?
Maybe. I'll have to think about it.
I'm gonna
where he was last week. He went around in the Mojave Desert, so he was at the Amboy Crater. Him and Kevin went touring around the Mojave. So you remember that? Well, the first time we went out to the Southwest, we went to the Amboy.
Yeah,
it's like a cinder cone out there before we went to find the current ripples down there in the dry lake at Cadiz.
So
yeah,
Bruce was out there with Kevin Aldis, our friend, our good buddy Kevin.
Yep, just
cool.
last week touring around there. So
interesting. Okay.
Peter Shell. Peter
Shell. Hello, Peter.
$273. No comment.
Oh,
Thank you,
Peter. No comment. Hey, man. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can't
Peter.
tell you
Really
how much we appreciate it.
Yes.
That'll buy Brad a couple of days worth of beer.
Wow, Brad, I'm coming to your house for a couple days.
Can we come over, Brad?
Yeah, really. Yeah, me and Peter had a good talk this past weekend. Yeah, he's got some good ideas going.
Peter is one of our good friends who we really like having on trips.
And he has really supported the show. So we really appreciate it.
Thanks, Peter, man.
Yeah.
Look forward to hanging out with you again. You know what I like about Peter is he doesn't really take offense when I give him a hard time. So
he takes offense to my driving, though, but that's okay. I don't.
Yeah, well, that's.
I don't blame him for that. Okay, Andrew McCall, $10 says, Randall, I have been following and putting all of the pieces together, confident I have an idea as to some of the stuff you've alluded to, and I think you've already gotten the signal, quote unquote, to start teaching us. End of comment. Doesn't look like a question to me. Is there a question in there?
Quote unquote, the signal.
Yes. You have gotten the signal.
I've gotten the signal. Okay. All right.
Well, thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Yes, thank you.
The book is open, I think, is kind of what he's talking about, maybe.
Okay. All right.
While you're thinking on that, I'll take the opportunity to say we have put a little video, a little teaser about some moon disclosure for the Patreon contributors. So Randall does have a Patreon account. You can contribute monthly. We are getting better about offering things and putting things in there exclusively, bonus content, early content, different things like that. So there was a little video that just got posted in there in the past couple of days about the moon. So if you're curious about that, you may want to check in and help Randall out through Patreon.
Well, thanks, Brad, for saying that.
Yeah.
Our situation has been that we've all been on the road a whole lot the last couple of months, and it's really difficult to get together and do these podcasts when we're all scattered over the face of the earth. So, but I think we're going to be around for a while. I don't think I'm going anywhere, other than it looks like I'm going to make a reappearance on Joe Rogan on the 23rd of January. He wants to talk more about the alternative energy technology disclosure. And we didn't get to any of that tonight, but I think we should devote a podcast. That may be our next live podcast. That could easily fill up an hour and a half or 2 hours of discussion, because it's happening. And anybody who wants to know more, there is now a website up. It's only been up probably a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks by now. But strikefoundation.earth. And dive into that. I mean, there's a lot of information there, and new stuff it's going to be updated a lot in the next month or two. But it was put up in a hurry, because apparently on my last Joe Rogan appearance, I sort of let the cat out of the bag a little bit prematurely, as I have come to find out. And I wasn't going to go into it. It just sort of came up inadvertently, and then Joe wouldn't let me just let it slide. And anyhow, I did not even know at the time that Mazda was under Mazda Auto in Japan was under a non-disclosure agreement.
Oh.
And I disclosed, and a panic ensued. And one of the associates of the Strike Foundation made an emergency flight to Japan to try to do damage control.
Don't worry, Randall. You only told the conspiracy theorists that don't believe the experts. So none of those people matter.
Well, that's a relief.
They just shout at people on Twitter. It's okay.
But as it turned out, though, at once all the ruffled feathers was soothed, it turned out to be a good thing, because Mazda's stock value had an uptick the day or two after the Rogan podcast, and a lot of favorable internet comments.
Yes, that's cool.
And then, now I don't know if I should even say this.
Yeah,
better not.
Yeah, you better not.
I better not go to the next. Yeah,
now you're worrying me.
I mean,
stop. I have a dead man switch.
It's live. Stop. Can't cut it
out. Okay, I will not. Yeah, there were certain other consequences as well.
You gave the website out.
So that was part of the 5 days in Florida, meeting with Malcolm, getting some more training on how to speak about it, and understanding more clearly the fusion aspects on the plasmoid unification model, and the different things that are involved in this new technology. So Randall will be able to speak about it on that next Joe Rogan experience coming up in January. So well, yeah, that'll be a big one.
It's it's a challenge for me to try to, like, in about 6 weeks, come to understand like 50 years of detailed research. But I'm doing my best. And
if you see this right away in the next 18 hours, you'll be able to catch Randall. Well, I don't know how they work it. Maybe you guys know, Russ and Kyle, the Grimerica Outlawed episodes. Randall's going to speak to them tomorrow night, so I don't know when they post those, but we're going to record something talking about the plasmoids.
They usually go up within the next couple of days, I think, but you just have to be part. You have to be weekend subscribed. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the idea now is to, there's two awesome implications to this. One, just on its own merits, it can completely change the industrial landscape of this planet in the next decade. Two is that it also is part of a major recovery of, the whole question of ancient technology. And once you begin to understand this technology, you realize that, yes, an entire civilization could be powered using this kind of technology. And 15 or 20,000 years later, you're not going to find anything that would have been an obvious infrastructure. And that's part of the problem these archaeologists are having when they constantly repeat the thing. Well, where's the pottery? Where are the artifacts? Where's the evidence?
Except for a 481-foot pyramid in the desert.
But we all know.
The power lines and
because
if those weren't there, those weren't necessary. You're not going to be found.
If they were machining giant chunks of granite into precise objects, then they needed pottery nearby.
Yeah,
they needed to be making pottery.
Well, see, this is where
where are the shirts?
Where are the potsherds?
If Russ, you wanted to one evening or one of our episodes kind of take the helm and do your presentation, I would love to hear that presentation again that you've done several times now that I've
absolutely
heard. Would you be willing to do that?
Sure.
And I would really like to hear it in the context of what I now know and am learning about, which the first time I heard it, that was outside the periphery of my understanding. Now I'm getting an actual kind of a working comprehension of how this technology would have functioned. And I would like to hear your take again within that context.
Okay. Absolutely.
Yeah. It'd be great.
So that website again is strikefoundation.earth.
.earth, yes.
Okay, we have.
I've gone through parts of it. There's some things that are well populated. There's some things that are missing, but like Randall said, they put it up in a rush. Malcolm's got 40 years of notes. and they're compiling it. They've got a team of people, and there's a first group of information there. There's plenty to dig into, but there's more coming soon. StrikeFoundation.earth.
Yeah, and last when was this? 4 or 5? What day is this? Monday. Yeah. So last week I sat down with the lead scientist of Strike Foundation, the CEO of Strike Foundation, Mike Robertson, the CEO of HowTube, myself. We recorded a video interview with the head of the India Foundation, which is a think tank that works as a liaison between the French government and the Indian government. And this, we will be able to put this on the website. I will be getting a copy of the recording. Mike recorded it on our end. The interviewer, Com Carpentier, on the other end that interviewed us, it has since gone up to the highest echelons of the Indian government. And they are very interested in this technology because one of the applications of it is these retrofits on internal combustion engines. And there's a video online on the site that you can find, download, watch it, with Roland Perry, the Australian author who's written like 30 some books, including the biography of Mel Gibson, in case you were wondering. Mel Gibson, by the way, is not involved in this, and he's not an alien. Okay. Yeah, and it talks about it's talking about how the technology can be used to retrofit internal combustion engines to capture all the carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, pollutants coming out of there, even the heat energy, and recycle it, and basically emit almost pure oxygen. It's a very interesting. The video's on there if anybody wants to go in and find it. Like I said, the website is being updated as we speak, and there will be a lot more stuff. So we'll see where this goes, but it could be a lot of interesting thing happening in the next few years. The last thing I will mention is that Malcolm told me that there was going to be a disclosure. You guys have probably seen some of the press releases about cold fusion research at Lawrence Livermore.
Hot fusion. Pretty sure.
Cold fusion.
Okay, I haven't seen that.
Well, the U.S. Department of Energy has come out. Well, fusion
last weekend.
Hot fusion.
Yeah, that's fusion. Yeah,
December 12th.
The hot kind.
Just fusion. Yeah,
right.
Not
okay,
fusion.
just fusion. But because because the term cold fusion has supposedly been discredited.
Yeah,
supposedly.
Supposedly, right? No. So, anyways, that was. Now, I don't know how true this is, and I personally don't believe it. It's just too much to take on. But maybe they accelerated their timeline of disclosure because of what I blabbed on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
After that, he said to me, there are people at Lawrence Livermore, and I know he knows some of those people. He said they might now move their disclosure forward. And then like a week later, I'm sitting there at breakfast with him and with Mike Robertson and the CEO of Strike Foundation, and he gets a text on his phone. And I think it was the 11th, and showing that morning, the London Financial Times had released a report, the first report. And then, of course, the next day or two, the world press picked it up. And then he looked at me and he said, "See, I told you so." And I said, "I refuse to believe that." Because now I'm paranoid. See what's happened? I'm paranoid now about anything I say.
The Randall ripple effect.
Yeah. So don't believe a word of it. I don't. It's merely coincidence.
That was the 11th. And then the 12th, the more global news came out. But yeah, it's kind of interesting how that's going to develop. And apparently there's not somebody that has like designed and followed through with the plans to make it for the US. So that's kind of like an open market there. But basically you'd use your gas to crank your engine and to get it heated up. and they get the system to start running. But then once it's running, it's a captured internal water system, and it just operates on its own and will keep going once it's up to temperature. So you're going to use 80% potentially less gas. Who knows what the numbers actually end up being, but and apparently it's pretty simple system. The diagrams are right on the website.
Mm-hmm. Well, as a matter of fact, our good friends Ben Johnson and his Navy SEAL buddies I've brought them into contact with Malcolm, and he's providing them with coaching and schematics, and these guys are going to attempt and some of these guys are pretty high level educated in terms of the physics and the engineering capabilities. And we had Brad was in on the conference a few days ago, the Zoom meeting that we had, and these guys are going to attempt to replicate some of the technology and build working prototypes.
Yeah, all I want to know is, can we get a prototype to install on one of our cars and try it out?
Well, somebody's going to have to be the guinea pigs for the first rollout. Yeah,
we'll do it.
We're going to have to get Marty in on this.
Yes,
too,
Marty. Yes, absolutely. Marty can be in on it.
Okay, you guys know Marty. I don't know Marty. I only
no way, bro. Don't let Marty in on this.
Don't let Marty. Okay. Listen, if you guys know and trust Marty, he's okay by me.
We do. He's a great guy.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah, for sure.
So, any more questions, or
we have too many. Let's go.
I mean,
don't forget to.
We're done.
You got to run through some of the SGI garbage.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. Okay, so, are we pretty much at the end of the show?
Yeah, I think we're at the end. I'm going to name off all these people who donated. Won't be able to get to their questions. Thank you guys so much, but go ahead, Randall.
Yeah, really, guys, thanks for your donation.
Sometimes
we just how much we appreciate this and how much it helps, because I'm going to be using this studio to turn out content that's going to be awesome, that all you guys that are helping us are going to have first access to it. I'm super excited about this studio. Look at here, the gantries on the ceiling. We've got lighting, microphones. Check out, maybe you've seen already, my awesome conference table that we built back there. An octagon table using sacred geometry.
What about the awesome computer?
Now, hey, how could I forget?
I mean, come on.
Let's see.
I think he just unplugged the camera.
Oh, we lost him. Damn it! He got us hooked up before me. I'm so close.
Did you lose me?
We can still hear you.
Your video's out,
but your camera is gone. Good thing the show's over.
Well, let's see. Is there a on-off switch on this thing? What happened?
I don't know. Did you pull it out of the USB plug? Yeah,
USB out of there.
I'll pull it out and then I'll plug it back in. I was going to show everybody, Russ. I was going to show everybody the awesome computer you built.
It's obviously wasn't meant to happen. The camera was like, no, you are not allowed to show.
Can't look at itself.
Oh, man. I wanted to show off your computer.
Well, let me thank, let's see, Nos4A2 for $20. Plasmoid Aliens for 0.79 pounds. Any Davis for $10. Darren Wheats for 108. Paul Steller for $5. Sergeant Gray 20. Rex for $20. David Lane $10. Jason Moskovitz $10. Richard Everett $10. Brandon Burr Music $10. Greedo Vizio $20. Kimberly Black $10. Peter Shell another 108. Thank you, Peter, so much.
Damn. Peter, man, you're awesome, man.
Thank you, everybody. That's incredible.
Nos again, $20. Someone Unseen, 50. What is that? 50 Australian. Thank you. Ohms, $10. Mike A, $5. Bruce Rhodes, $50. Thank you guys so much. And then Sergeant Gray one more time for $5. Thank you all so much. I'm sorry we couldn't get to some of your questions. You know, we never know how much time we're going to have, but we really appreciate the donations. And
Russ, you'll like this. Check out what we've done here. You see the housing we made for you?
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Look at that. Now check this out.
Oh, yeah.
And then
very nice.
All right.
Hey.
so I can get to the back of it. How about that?
That's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I assume it's well ventilated in there. It's got to have.
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
Oh yeah. Well ventilated. The back is completely open. The sides are open.
Okay.
Yeah. Well ventilated. All right.
Excellent.
So let me. Okay, and I hate to end on an unpleasant note, but I got to do this. So, a lot of people do know that there's a website out there that I was once affiliated with until a long series of events and things just made it utterly impossible to keep working with this administrator with whom I entrusted a great deal of my premier work. Anyhow, around 4.5 years ago, he decided because he used as an excuse the alliance that we formed when he found out that Russ and Kyle had volunteered to help me and Brad launch a podcast to focus primarily on our geological work. He goes ballistic and sends the most obscene, disgusting text to Russ and Kyle, attacking them personally, calling them names. And I'm almost certainly at some point in the near future going to go public with this, just so you can see for yourself. But he attacks Russ and Kyle and then decided that he no longer needed to compensate me as per our very clear, simple, clean agreement to compensate me for the sales of my work. So he ingratiated himself to me at a time when I needed help with the website, and then proceeded to build the website and then seize it as his own. He began to use it to promote conspiracy theories with which I didn't go along, or that at least had no place on a website that was ostensibly going to showcase my work. And that was the whole point of the website. The Sacred Geometry International was my name for the website. The content was 90% all mine that I created. The website was successful because I went on between 40 and 50 podcasts to promote it. And then in October of 2018, after repeated requests to give me access to the sales of my work on the website, and after multiple refusals, after actually a total of 9 requests on my part, 1 on the part of my wife, 1 on the part of Roe and my brother, we still don't have any knowledge as to how much has been sold off there of my work, of the content I created. He's kept 100% of all the money coming in. He's continued to go behind my back, trying to basically libel me. He's written a very poisonous letter to Graham Hancock that Graham basically saw through instantly. He's written to other people that trying to discredit me because he knows that I'm starting to talk about what's been going on over there. So the fact of the matter is that he continues to sell my work. I have received no compensation since October of 2018. He's been served with 2 cease and desist letters, which he has ignored. And he then left the state of Georgia, in which he had lived his entire life, moved to Texas, presumably thinking perhaps that if he went across state lines, he would be less vulnerable to justice. Anyhow, our good friend, Clyde, our attorney, good friend, wrote a letter to Bluehost, the host of the website, maybe a month ago, telling Bluehost that Sacred Geometry International was infringing upon my copyright claims. And Bluehost responded back, said, well, we have informed the administrator of the site that he needs to remove your work, your copyrighted intellectual property from the website within 48 hours. Please check back after 48 hours. If it's still there, let us know and we will take further action. Within 48 hours, before we could even get back to him, the website was gone. Apparently somebody at Bluehost looked at it and saw how glaringly obvious it was that all of my work and my face, my name plastered all over the thing with the big sales was fraudulent. The site went down, and what he then did was migrated it over to an offshore account and relaunched it. So that's what he's doing now. He's got a hosting venue out of Malaysia. If you go to the website, Sacred Geometry International, you can see for yourself. He's selling my work. He's been selling it to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars, and I've not seen a penny of it, like I said, since October of 2018. So I have decided that, I've entreaties to do the right thing have been ignored. So I've decided it's time to just go public with the whole thing, let people know what's going on, know that that's my work that's being sold over there, that I've not received a single penny. And he can go, and he probably will go online and accuse me of lying. The problem is he's left an enormous paper trail, and everything that I'm saying can be easily backed up by reams of documentation, and the many people that have been involved in this thing since it went down, that have seen what's going on and will confirm the 100% truth of what I'm saying. What I would like to do, again, is get this out there to as many people as possible. He has disabled comments on the social media aspect of Sacred Geometry International, no doubt because too many people were calling him out. But he's apparently making a living by selling my work, and the time has come to bring it to an end. And this is why I want people to know what's going on over there. And if you can spread the word that all of that sales and everything that's going on there, I have nothing to do with it. I've had nothing to do with the QAnon, pedophilia rings, Pizzagate, all of the things he's been using the site to promote. Now, it's satanic Freemasonry that he's promoting, which is just completely ridiculous, the stuff he's putting up there. So, and I think the main reason for that is that's his way of going like this to me, because he knows I love and honor the craft. So, and then the other thing that's so ironic about the whole thing is there wouldn't be sacred geometry if the Freemasons hadn't preserved it and perpetuated it for half a millennia to great cost of themselves. There wouldn't be. That's where the primary source of sacred geometry, where it comes from. So he's sitting on top of a site called Sacred Geometry International while he's at the same time posting childish, ridiculous conspiracy theories about Freemasons. So anyways, I want people to know that, and there will be more, because I think what we're going to do is, like I said, there's an enormous amount of documentation that will support everything I'm saying. And I think the time is coming to put it out there in the interest of disclosure so everybody can see for themselves. And Russ and Kyle and Brad, you know yourselves, you've seen, of course, because you were the recipients of that scathing, obscene text that he sent to you guys. So, you know, I'm not exaggerating at all, am I? No.
Not at all.
Not at all. All right. So that's all I'm going to say about that. On a good note, there's really incredible things happening we didn't get to talk about. I want to talk about it more. And we will in our next live stream.
We will.
We will. Yes, we will. Got to talk about Ben and the legal mushroom cultivation now. Our good friend Ben, the former Navy SEAL, and his crew have gotten the first federal license to legally grow psilocybin mushrooms. And they're just waiting on grants to come through. And these guys now, if anybody believes that, you know, having legal access to psilocybin mushrooms and related things could be a major game changer for restoring the mental and psychological health of the human species, these guys are worth supporting. And I'll be finding out how they can be supported more effectively, and we'll get into that on the next podcast. In fact, maybe I'll even invite some of these guys to join us.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yep. Excellent. So we're, like we were saying at the beginning, we're all back from the traveling season. I mean, there are trips ahead of us, but for now we can get back in the studio, focus on doing live streams every couple of weeks, recording normal shows. Those are going to be starting to get produced again and published. Thank you guys all for waiting. I know there's a kind of a delay on things when we're traveling, but this is part of the deal. You know, we love making the content for you guys, but we also have to get out in the field to find more information to make content about, right? So we've got to do the investigation as well. So thank you guys for supporting the show and for being patient. RandallCarlson.com is the website where you get all of your Randall Carlson stuff from now on. This is where you go. So yes, Randall was talking about Sacred Geometry International for a long time. That was the website that he would name on shows, but now it's RandallCarlson.com.
Right.
And Randall has full control over that website. That is his content, and anything on there is actively being, like we're all working on it and getting it published and everything.
I'm
like
secretly planning to take
we're
power.
going to steal it, Randall, and run.
With the exception of Kyle, we're let's mention though,
and foil lingers.
Now that we're all back, Rowan, my brother, and Mike Howtube are going to get together and they'll put up a website, hopefully within the next week, where people will be able to go. We've got the third installment of the Cumberland Plateau trifecta, and I think it's going to end up being the most awesome.
Am I supposed to be a driver for that one again?
I hope so.
Okay, well, we'll see.
Right. Yeah, you guys you've seen the lodge we're going to stay in, right? Yeah,
yeah.
These guys they're going to Turkey.
I'm a great driver,
Randall. Some conflict.
Yeah, we are going to Turkey. So yeah.
When?
Okay. Yeah, so that's
1st of April to the well, it depends if it's 1 or 2 weeks. Maybe first to the 6th or 7th, or it might be 1st to the 15th.
Okay,
or 16th.
if it's the 6th or 7th, that's workable. If it's the 1st, then there's a day or two of overlap.
Yeah, the 1st is the day the tour starts.
Yeah,
so we're going to be
leaving before that.
Yeah, we're going to leave a couple of days before. So maybe I won't be on that one.
Yeah, so Upper Cumberland is in Kentucky, and it's going to be March 26th through 30th. But as Randall said, that'll be we'll have the website up so people can sign up for that very, very soon. We'll put the link as always in the description or behind me, RandallCarlson.com tours and events.
There you go.
Can catch all the ones that are going on. We're going to do Scabland in May. We're going to do Montana in September. Get out in the field with us. It's a blast.
And we have a blast.
Yes, it's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, off the charts. Wow, there was something else about the website there, but
well, I do want to mention.
Keep going.
I do want to mention the Geocosmic Rex YouTube channel. That's Brad's channel, so that channel's good. It's got
that channel is good. Yes.
Right. That has all of Brad's material of Randall's talks. From 20 years. So you've got lots of great material there. That's Brad. Doesn't have anything to do with Sacred Geometry International. So don't get those two confused.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, Brad runs Geocosmic Rex. Yes. Support Brad.
Yeah, thank you.
So there you go. Geocosmic Rex, RandallCarlson.com. And
also StrikeFoundation.earth.
.earth.
And don't forget about howtube.com.
Howtube.com.
Yeah.
And we will talk about the Cosmic Summit coming up.
Yep.
Hopefully we're going to have Graham Hancock. We won't just talk about Graham. We'll talk to Graham on one of these live shows coming up. Oh, this is what I was going to say. 2 weeks out, I think, is New Year's Day. So we would not be doing the live show then. So I think we'll probably skip a week.
Okay.
Also,
either way, I'm not going to be anywhere except right here in my studio. So
there you go. Merry Christmas.
Tell them where you're going to be, Randall.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year. I think the next live stream will probably be after Christmas, I think.
In 2023, that's
Merry
right.
Christmas.
Oh, well, since you brought up Christmas, let me say I just, I did this thing Friday night. We recorded a 2-hour presentation where I dive into some of the esoterica and history and connections with Christmas, the winter solstice and stuff. It's pretty juicy. It should be ready for download.
All right.
Any day now. I don't know what Mike is charging, but I told him to keep it reasonable. But yeah, that'll help. As always, any little bit helps. So there will be that. It's pretty juicy stuff. I don't know if you guys have heard it yet. Have you?
Have not.
Not that specific
Okay.
one.
Yeah, there's some juicy stuff in there for sure. Things that you should find I think very interesting and thought-provoking.
Uh-huh.
And one of our questions tonight had to do with the the sacrifice of the Divine King. There's a little bit in there about that.
All right.
And yeah. So check it out.
That should be through the HowTube channel. So again, I'll get the right link and put that in the notes here.
Okay, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you, chat.
Right.
You guys are highly entertaining. Thank you so much for sticking with us for the live stream. Thanks for all the donations. Good night, gentlemen.
Good to see everybody
guys.
again.
Good to see
you. Good night,
you.
everyone.
Adios. Happy
Randall.
holiday weekends.
Brad, good night.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.